Hi, my name's Yasmin, or Yasmin in this country, and that name was chosen by my parents because my dad's from Pakistan and my mum's from Austria, and it's one of the few names you get in both countries. So they went for that name, and I like it. And it was fun growing up with parents from different countries. We had lots of exciting times. And if your mum's Austrian, by the way, you can open your presents on Christmas Eve, which was always the biggest perk, but we had nice holidays and things as well. And my dad's side of the family, we used to have lots of exciting visitors that would come in their beautiful clothes, and the women with their hair up, and then I'd watch them as they took out these hair pieces and dismantled these beautiful looks that they had. But they also always came with suitcases full of gorgeous presents. Shiny, exotic things you couldn't really get here then, which I loved, obviously. And then when they went back to Pakistan, they would often fill up these suitcases with underwear from Marks and Spencer's, because that was what was considered treasure in Pakistan at the time. So it was great, I loved it, and we had great food and obviously really good stories from different parts of the world. And the story I want to tell you today is actually from my mum's side. She's Austrian. She's from a really beautiful part in South Austria called Styria, or Steiermark if you're German. And it's a story that talks about the nature of that area and also the people. So I want to tell you the story of the Wasserman. Now, this is a story from my mum's side in Styria, and in that area there's lots of beautiful mountains, and one of the mountains features very heavily in this story, and also some beautiful lakes that are very cold because they're filled up with the snow that comes melting off the mountains. A beautiful big lake there is called the Leopoldsteiner See, and it's stunning, although it is cold to swim in. And this story talks about the Wasserman, who lives in a tiny grotto, like a little black pool, on the road to Heathlow, just by the side of the road near the lake. And he is a strange little creature. Not many people have seen him, but apparently he's got a half fish, half man body, and the face of Poseidon with these long, sort of bearded, swirling, seaweedy type facial hair. And he's quite scary because there's lots of stories about, in the storms, him leaping up in the waves of the lake and pulling down children to the depths. So the villagers have always been very wary of the Wasserman. And in this story, hundreds of years ago, the villagers were trying to get some revenge on him because they thought not only had he stolen children, but he had also stolen treasure. So they lured him out of his little grotto very cleverly, because he's quite shy. He doesn't like coming out. He does sometimes come and sunbathe. But what they did was they placed some items around the mouth of the grotto. So they put some clothes that they'd smeared with tar, some schnapps, which is an alcoholic drink, and some wurst, which is like sausage or ham. And they hid and they waited, and sure enough, after a while, the Wasserman came splashing out of his grotto, and he looked and he saw the items, and the Wasserman quickly ate all the ham, and it was very salty. It made him thirsty. So then he saw the schnapps and he drank it all down, and it's really strong. And then he was so drunk that he started dancing about and slithering, and his cold icy blood had turned hot. And then he saw the clothes, and he was so drunk he thought he could put on these clothes. So he put these clothes on, but then he realised he couldn't move. He was stuck because of the tar, although he was too drunk to care. And at that point the villagers came, they pounced on him, and they bundled him back to the village. And they said to him, "Look, Wasserman, we know you've been taking our treasure for years, so we're going to give you an ultimatum. If you want to get out of here and back to your icy, splashy cave, you're going to have to give us some treasure." The Wasserman was clever, and he thought, and he looked around, and he looked up, and he said, "Okay." And he gave them a little riddle. He said, "Well, you can choose, but you better choose well, and you better choose clever. A golden foot will soon disappear. A silver heart will last but a year. But an iron hat will last forever. So the villagers thought, well, we don't want something that's going to disappear or just last a year. We want something that's going to last forever. So obviously they went for the hat of iron. But actually the Wasserman had been rather clever, because he knew something that the villagers didn't know. He knew that one of the big mountains that overshadowed their village was made of solid iron. And so he pointed to this mountain. He said, well, you want iron forever? You have iron forever. And you've always had iron forever, because in that mountain is a treasure trove of iron that will never end. And with that, they had to release him, and he went slithering and splashing back into his cave. But the villagers didn't believe him. They went up into the mountains and they started chipping away, and sure enough, those mountains were full of precious iron. And if you go to Austria today, you can see that mountain. It's called the Erzberg. In German, Erz means ore, and Eisenerz is iron ore. And the mountain today has been chipped and chipped away, and it almost looks like a pyramid, because what the Wasserman couldn't have known is how man would invent big machines to do mining for him and be able to take great big chunks of this iron away. But he was right, because the villagers became rich, their children became rich, and the whole of Styria became rich because of this beautiful big mountain, which you can still see today. And if you go to the Leopoldsteiner See, have a look out, because the grotto is still there, and they've even put a helpful sign there saying the Wasserman lives here. So I hope you get to go there one day. It's very pretty. But don't swim in the water, it's cold. We were just coming back to the car, me and Pip, who's back there, and I tripped on this stone. And I don't know if you can see, but that, I think, is iron in there. And I just think that's a bit spooky. And I like to think it was the Wasserman leaving me a little thank you for telling his story.